And then I would say number 2, most common that people will run into at home, it's called Pythium. There's a couple other versions of it, but we'll stick with just Pythium for this example. But what we're talking about is root rot.
Hmm.
And I would say, aside from powdery mildew, which you basically, if you grow a cucurbit in general, so cucumber squashes, and you are growing organically and you live anywhere it's humid, you will get powdery mildew at some
Hmm.
point.
100%
But
guaranteed.
the second most common, I feel like, is root rot. And so what this is normally, well, it is caused by too much moisture staying in your soil. Normally, this is essentially like, think about it this way: your soil can only hold a certain ratio of water and air. Your plant roots need both, if possible. Well, they need
Most
both
people don't
in
realize
general.
that they need oxygen.
They do. And so, if your soil is only water, it has pushed out all the air in there, and then you start to develop things called anaerobic bacteria, which
Hmm.
is just bacteria that grows in a low oxygen environment. The vast majority of anaerobic bacterias are negative and will cause major issues on your roots. Some plants are more susceptible than others to root rot. I will say that peppers are one of the most finicky I've ever seen as far as moisture levels go. But if you keep many plants wet at that level for too long, you develop anaerobic bacteria, they colonize on the roots, and if you get root rot, that is a dead plant. Dead plant. So it's a very, very hard one to come back from once you kind of tip over that corner.
Yeah, the symptom of Pythium is my plant's dead.
Yeah.
That's
It
basically the
literally,
symptom.
so I would say it looks like very similar to it doesn't have any water.
Hmm.
So the plant starts to get like wilty, and then it starts to yellow and you're like, oh, I haven't watered enough. And then you water again, and it's done, because basically it just gets all wilty and sad, and then it just dies. It just falls over dead. The other thing that's very, very sensitive to this is very small plants,
For sure.
because when you're germinating something, when you're growing microgreens, or basically just germinating in general, your plant has one tiny little root to start with. Yeah, I'm talking, sometimes it's like a hair basically, and it cannot absorb a whole bunch of water, and it has very little like other defenses. There's no other roots it can go to. So if that one gets overwatered and develops any kind of negative bacteria, dead. They call that damping off. It's literally just, it just falls over dead. So you'll see it basically just dies, it is the funny one. So basically, if you get this issue, it's sometimes better to move on, and we'll talk a little more about that later on. But there's a lot of things you can do to help this. So make sure you are not overwatering. I know that is a tough one. It is a really tough one to tell people how much to water. I still think maybe the best thing to say is you want your soil moist, but not wet. Because basically, if you pick it up and you're just feeling all this weight of water, you're likely overwatered. You want it to feel like it has something in it, but not like heavy. If you pick up your pot and it's heavy, normally a bad sign. You can add a bunch of beneficial fungi. There's a bunch of beneficial bacteria and things that you can add as well. And we'll talk a little more about kind of all the how that all is going to play into it in just a little bit. But basically, what we're trying to do is make sure that it doesn't get overwatered. Some people take that into mixing in things like perlite into their soil, because perlite can't hold water. You might see people put like a layer of rocks at the bottom of their pot. Same idea there, is there's always a place for water to drain down to. One that is kind of a weird one to think about, but it's true. If you get a pot that has no drainage holes in it, be very aware of that, because I've also
Yes.
seen people absolutely kill their plants with that, because most of your decorative pots at the big box stores and everything you get do not have drainage holes. And they do that because when you water inside your house, then you don't shoot water everywhere. The problem is then the water sits in there, and you can absolutely murder houseplants this exact same way.